You learned early that acting nice was safer than being real. Not because someone explicitly told you, but because your nervous system, over years of subtle cues, figured it out. It noticed that when you smiled, when you agreed, when you smoothed over the awkward silences, people seemed to like you more. The tension in the room would dissipate. The conversations felt easier. You found a way to fit in, to be accepted. So you kept doing it. This performance of pleasantness, quietly, automatically, and eventually compulsively. You became a master of social harmony, not just by being agreeable, but by preemptively managing the emotional landscape around you. You learned to read the subtle shifts in someone's tone, the fleeting expressions that betrayed their true feelings. You learned to offer a compliment just when their confidence wavered, to change the subject before an argument could ignite, to say it's no problem at all, when, deep down, it was a very big problem. You became an expert at regulating everyone else's comfort because it felt like the only way to secure your own. And if that sounds even remotely familiar, I need you to stay with me for a moment. Because when you've lived this way long enough, a strange and lonely dissonance begins to form. People will describe you as easygoing, kind, always so positive. But inside, there's a growing exhaustion that sleep can't touch. There's a quiet resentment that feels shameful to admit, a profound sense of being misunderstood. Not because being nice is inherently bad, but because somewhere along the way, that niceness stopped being a genuine expression of your character and started feeling like a mask you couldn't take off. It became the price of admission for your relationships. This is the part that no one else gets to see. How deeply you've internalized this role of the nice one. How it isn't just a behavior you choose, it's a survival strategy you depend on. It's how you navigate the complexities of human connection. It's how you manage your deep-seated fear that if you showed what you really think, if you revealed the frustration, the disagreement, the messy truth of your inner world, you wouldn't just be disliked, you would be abandoned. That fear, that powerful, compelling fear, didn't just appear from thin air. Often, the people who master this art of performative niceness were once children navigating environments where their authentic feelings were inconvenient, unwelcome, or even punished. Maybe you grew up in a household where any form of disagreement was seen as a personal attack. Expressing a different opinion wasn't a conversation, it was an act of defiance that led to conflict, shouting, or the chilling withdrawal of affection. Your nervous system, in its infinite wisdom, learned a crucial lesson. Harmony equals safety. Disagreement equals danger. So, you learned to swallow your words, to nod along, to bury your own perspective under a layer of agreeableness. Your true thoughts became a secret, a private world you could only visit when you were completely alone. Or perhaps you were the child of a parent who was emotionally fragile, someone whose moods were like a volatile weather system you had to constantly monitor. You learned that their happiness was your responsibility. A sad face from you could trigger their despair. A moment of youthful rebellion could send them into a spiral of anxiety. So, you became their emotional caretaker. You put on a happy face even when you were sad. You acted cheerful even when you were scared, because their stability felt more important than your authenticity. You learned that being nice and easy was the only way to keep the peace, to keep your world from collapsing. Your own needs became secondary, an afterthought to the urgent task of managing someone else's emotional state. In other situations, this pattern is born from early social experiences. Maybe you were the new kid at school, desperate to fit in. You quickly realized that the path of least resistance was the fastest way to acceptance. Agreeing with the popular kids, laughing at jokes you didn't find funny, suppressing your unique interests to adopt theirs. It all worked. You made friends. You weren't an outcast. But the entire time, a quiet voice inside knew you were playing a part. The you they liked wasn't the real you. And the longer you played the part, the more terrifying it became to stop, fearing that the entire social structure you'd built would crumble the moment you revealed your true self. This constant performance, this gap between your external actions and your internal reality, is known in psychology as cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort experienced when you hold two or more contradictory beliefs ideas, or values, or when your beliefs are contradicted by your actions. When you say, "I'm fine," while your heart is breaking, that's dissonance. When you agree to a plan you despise just to avoid conflict, that's dissonance. When you compliment someone you secretly resent, that's dissonance. And your mind, seeking consistency, has to find a way to resolve this tension. To cope, you might start to rationalize your behavior. You tell yourself, "I'm just being diplomatic," or "It's better to keep the peace than to cause a scene." You might even start to convince yourself that you do agree, that you are fine, blurring the lines between the performance and your reality until you're not even sure what you truly think or feel anymore. This is a protective mechanism, a way for your psyche to manage the unbearable friction of being inauthentic. But it comes at a tremendous cost. The first casualty is your energy. Maintaining this facade is exhausting. Every social interaction requires a constant, low-level hum of self-monitoring. Is my smile convincing enough? Was my tone too sharp? Should I have just agreed? This hypervigilance consumes an immense amount of mental and emotional bandwidth, leaving you feeling chronically drained, even on days when you've seemingly done nothing. It's the exhaustion of an actor who never gets to leave the stage. The second casualty is intimacy. True connection is built on vulnerability and authenticity. It's the experience of being seen and accepted for who you truly are, flaws and all. But when you only show people a carefully curated, agreeable version of yourself, you prevent anyone from ever getting close to the real you. People might love the mask you wear, but you're left with a nagging, lonely feeling that, if they knew the person behind it, they would leave. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel profoundly alone, because no one truly knows you. Your relationships feel shallow, conditional, built on a foundation of performance rather than genuine connection. And perhaps the most devastating casualty is your relationship with yourself. Over time, by consistently ignoring your own thoughts, feelings, and needs, you send a powerful message to your inner self. You don't matter. Your opinions are not valid. Your feelings are an inconvenience. You begin to lose touch with your own internal compass. When someone asks you what you want, you may genuinely not know. The voice of your own desire has been silenced for so long that you can no longer hear its whisper. This creates a deep internal void, a sense of being a stranger to yourself, which can manifest as depression, anxiety, or a chronic feeling of emptiness. The path to breaking this cycle isn't about suddenly becoming a confrontational or disagreeable person. It's not about swinging the pendulum to the other extreme. It is a quiet, courageous journey of reintegration. It begins with the simple act of noticing. Noticing the dissonance. Noticing when you say yes, but your body screams no. Noticing the resentment that bubbles up after you've suppressed your opinion one too many times. Noticing the exhaustion that follows a social event where you played the part of the nice one perfectly. This awareness is the first, crucial step. You cannot change a pattern you do not see. The next step is to start small in low-stakes environments. It's about relearning to voice your truth in ways that feel manageable. Maybe it starts with telling a friend, "Actually, I'd prefer Italian food tonight instead of Mexican." Maybe it's saying, "I don't have the emotional capacity to talk about that right now. Can we circle back tomorrow?" These small acts of authenticity are like exercising a muscle that has atrophied. They will feel awkward, even terrifying at first. Your nervous system will scream at you that you are in danger, that you are risking rejection. This is where self-compassion becomes your most vital tool. You must learn to speak to yourself with the kindness you so freely give to others. When that fear of rejection arises, you can tell yourself, "It's okay to feel scared. This is new. But my needs are valid. My preference matters." You are essentially reparenting yourself, providing the reassurance you never received as a child. The reassurance that your authentic self is worthy of being seen and heard. As you practice, you will start to gather new data. You will find that when you express a different opinion, the world does not end. A true friend won't abandon you because you don't want to see the same movie. A loving partner will respect your need for space. You will discover that the people who are meant to be in your life will not only tolerate your authenticity, they will celebrate it. They will be relieved to finally meet the real you. And yes, some people may fall away. Those whose relationships with you were predicated on your compliance may not stick around. And while that will be painful, it is also a necessary clearing, making space for connections that are deep, real, and nourishing. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about coming home to yourself. It's about closing the painful gap between who you are on the inside and how you show up in the world. It's about understanding that being kind and being nice are not the same thing. True kindness can be firm. True kindness can involve setting a boundary. True kindness can mean saying a difficult truth. Performative niceness is about controlling others' perceptions of you. Genuine kindness is about honoring both yourself and the other person. It's a slow, deliberate process of unlearning a lifetime of survival strategies and learning to trust that you are enough just as you are. Not because you are helpful, not because you are agreeable, but simply because you exist. And your truth, in all its messy, imperfect glory, deserves a voice. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, like, and drop your thoughts in the comments.